Hey, what's up? It's Tim Warner here, host of the Inform IT Certification Reference Guide. And we're continuing our series called the Test Taking Skills Clinic. This one focuses on the Cisco CCNA exam 640-802. And if you're new to this screencast series, what we do is take two IT certification practice exam items, and we basically perform a mini analysis on them. We don't focus on the content so much here. What we're doing is focusing on test-taking strategy. Therefore, I welcome all of you IT certification candidates. I don't care if you're a CompTIA person, an Apple person, an IBM person, an open source person. Doesn't matter. The actual subject matter is largely irrelevant. We're here to get better at test-taking skills. Therefore, our agenda is to look at the exam very briefly, look at the book and author from which I've pulled these questions, and then get to work. The exam under consideration today is exam 640-802, otherwise known as the Cisco Certified Network Associate, or CCNA. This is one of the hottest IT certification exams in industry. And it's hot because, number one, it's a lucrative skill set. Number two, it's a lucrative skill set. And number three, it's a lucrative skill set. I think you get the point. The skill set is that it represents the associate level Cisco internetworking engineer. It's for folks who enjoy, at least I hope they enjoy, working with network issues, in particular, working with Cisco hardware, routers, switches, etc. The book from which I've pulled these questions is from our Exam Cram line. Exam Cram's been around for a long time, and this author has too. Jeremy Shora is a really cool dude. He holds a tremendous number of certifications, including some very heavy Cisco certs. CCIE is the highest you can go in the Cisco credential system. He's the CIO of a company called AdTech Networks. They're an IT consultancy. AdTechNetworks.com is their URL. He does computer-based training for CBT Nuggets. Check him out there. And he maintains a blog at ciscoblog.com. I'm sure he does a whole bunch of other stuff too. He's a very multi-talented individual for sure. Great author, great teacher. Now, I've pulled the screen captures that we use from Safari Books Online. Check it out at safaribooksonline.com. Very simply, this is an online subscription service where we can access tons and tons of IT reference books. You can print them out, you can read them online, you can perform huge searches across all those books. Love it, love it, love it. Now then, question one from the CCNA practice question set. Now, I'm not going to get hung up in the subject matter proper. What we're doing, again, is looking at strategy. If you're fairly new to this material, you look at a question like this, and the first thing you do is freeze up. You see this run of Cisco Internetwork operating system output, and you instantly freeze, especially when you're in the exam room and time is of the essence. See, managing test anxiety is a big part of conquering your IT cert exams. You know how much time you have, you know how many items you have to get through within that certain point of time. So you have to maintain a level of calm, you have to stay cool and collected, and keep your brain. So this one is telling us we're troubleshooting a router. The router seems to lose its configuration each time it's rebooted, and we look at our show run output. And based on this output, what is the problem? Why is the router losing its memory each time it's rebooted? And then the choices down here talks about the NVRAM being not marked read-write, the configuration register is incorrect, insufficient DRAM config, and then such and so series routers no longer save their configuration, and so on. Now, if you watched my on-certification screencast on Network Plus, I made a reference that some exams more than others, you either know your content or you don't. In other words, some tests you can kind of fudge around using different tricks of the trade, different test-taking skills, different deductive reasoning tricks, and so on. Others, Cisco in particular, unless you really know your content, you can get into trouble. So looking at this interface, you have to know some stuff, at least at base, to get some kind of frame of reference here. I mean, putting myself into the shoes of somebody who finds himself or herself in the exam who shouldn't be, who doesn't know what a configuration register is, who doesn't know much about Cisco IOS. he or she might see the word configuration and then immediately jump down here in the question set and look for instances of the word configuration and see, okay, well, B, C, and D all have the word configuration, so I'm going to throw out A. This is an awfully risky strategy. You have to give the item writers some credit here, friends. Item writers are generally pretty smart people and don't fall for parlor tricks like that. You know what I'm saying? The correct answer in this case is B. The reason why this router keeps losing its configuration is that the configuration register is set incorrectly for this case. That's the bottom line. Unfortunately, in this case, there's really no quick way to get through this item. Really, it's a head game. It's a question of seeing an item that has a fair amount of output, taking a deep breath, and not being intimidated. You just have to kind of not be intimidated, take a deep breath, as I just said, and just put yourself, here's how I do it. I close my eyes for a second and I imagine myself in the scenario. I imagine myself in my current job if I'm working in the field at that time, or the last job I had where I was in the field, and I imagine myself in this exact situation, and I just imagine myself with a cup of coffee in the server room or at my desk, and I'm just calmly parsing through this output. It's really helpful because it takes a lot of the stress away, the fact that I'm in an exam environment and the time's ticking and so on. I hope that that little pep talk is helpful. Second question, let's take a look at this. One of your organization's routers is experiencing issues with keeping its routing table consistent with the rest of the routers. What command will allow you to see RIP updates, that's Routing Information Protocol, as they are sent from and received by the router? In this case, there's one correct answer, and there's 6 choices. Cisco will often do that on their tests. They'll give you more than just the traditional 4 choices to choose from. And you see that there's 3 shows and 3 debugs. Now, okay, you might think to yourself, all right, there's one correct answer here. And what I would do in terms of strategy is you can immediately throw away 3. I mean, obviously, logic tells you the correct answer is either going to be a show or a debug command. Now, in this case, you want to see RIP updates as they are sent from or received by the router. I've said in the Microsoft screencast, the one we did on 7640, that the money in most IT certification questions is in the last sentence or so, where the question actually asks you what it needs. This question here is a troubleshooting question, isn't it? It's asking us what command is going to allow us to see updates as they occur. Show typically shows us static information. Troubleshooting commands show us data that's ongoing. Therefore, we now know that we can throw out A, B, and C. We're looking for a troubleshooting or a debug command. You see what I mean? So we've now significantly improved our chances of answering this question correctly. Now it's just a question of figuring out, do we want IP route, IP RIP, or RIP updates? Now, we're dealing with Routing Information Protocol, or RIP, aren't we? So we immediately are probably thinking of E or F. There's IP RIP or RIP updates. What do you think it is? Correct answer in this case is E, debug IP RIP. Definitely, if you're not clear on that and you are studying for the CCNA, you need to get studying some more. Wrap up. My name is Tim Warner. Please feel free to contact me with any further questions, comments, suggestions. Email address is timothy.warner@pearson.com. The homepage for this on-certification screencast channel is informit.com/on-certification. And you can always find me at the Inform IT Certification Reference Guide. We don't have a really clean URL for that, unfortunately, so the best way to find me there is to hit up the informit.com homepage, navigate to the upper right corner of that page. You'll see a link called Reference Guides. Actually, the Certification Reference Guide is just one of several. Check them all out. There's a lot of really cool ones. My favorite is the SQL Server one. I've learned so much from my colleague Buck Woody. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this particular screencast. I hope that you found it useful and entertaining. Take good care. I'll see you again.